This is 2021's Karen. Warning, spoilers ahead. We open up to Karen as she washes away a Black Lives Matter chalk drawing, and she makes sure to get every bit of it. Welcome to Harvey Hill, a cul-de-sac neighborhood where Malik and Damani are celebrating becoming homeowners. Amani can't believe that they actually own a home, but Malik is more concerned about the commute to family and work. She ends up convincing him that he just needs to give it a shot, and they go back to their happy morning. Next door, Karen comes out with Kyle and Sarah, and she gets ready to take them to school. When she checks the mailbox, she notices Malik and Amani moving in, and she waves hello to them. Just then, Jan shows up, and she talks to Karen about how she's happy to have some diversity in the neighborhood. It's like there's a minimum quota to be considered diverse, and Malik and Amani fit the bill. Do property values go up since they can advertise the neighborhood as a diverse hotspot? I know Karen's gonna be the bad guy, but I wouldn't put Jan too far off that list so far. Jan thinks about it for a second, and she realizes that this is the first time to have a diverse community. She mentions asking them to be part of the HOA, and she says her goodbyes. Later on, Malik and Amani start unpacking, and Malik points out that it probably wasn't a good idea to move to a white neighborhood that's named after a Confederate soldier. Amani points out that she's going to petition the HOA to get that changed, and she tells him that change won't happen if they don't try to change as well. Malik can't argue with her, and he tries to get her into the bed. But they're interrupted by the sound of drilling outside. When they look out the window, they notice Karen installing cameras on the side of her house. Wow, she's wasting no time in fortifying her house. Not to mention she's doing it right there in front of their wide open window. She couldn't even bother to try and hide it or give them a chance. Karen doesn't mess around. The next day, Imani wishes Malik a good day at work and he heads out to his car. Just before he gets into the car, Karen comes over to say hello. Malik tries to shake her hand, but Karen tells him that she doesn't shake. He points out that he noticed her putting up her cameras, and Karen immediately thinks that he was casing her house. She plays it off as a joke, but Malik doesn't really think that it's that funny. I don't know what this says about Taryn Manning, but she plays the perfect Karen. She even had me going there for a minute. I almost feel like I'm getting a backstory on all the Karen videos on YouTube. Just before she leaves, Karen points out that the HOA handbook states that he should be removing his trash can from the road as soon as the trash comes. Later on, Karen goes to eat with Beth, and her brother Mike shows up to say hello. When Wind leaves, Beth tells Karen that her brother is super hot. Then she gets on the topic of Karen's new neighbors. The second Karen says that they're black, Beth immediately gets defensive. When Karen mentions the trash can being left at the curb, Beth immediately thinks that they're off to a bad start. Just then, a couple black men start laughing about something in their personal conversation, and Karen takes it upon herself to go over and tell them that they need to keep it down or she'll get the manager. She said the thing! She's gonna go get the manager! The second that they start laughing again, she walks right by them to get the manager. What's crazier is the fact that the manager actually kicks them out. This movie's not taking it easy at all. That night when Malik gets home from work, he sits in his car and smokes while listening to a bit of music, and Karen pops up and knocks on his window. When he rolls down his window, Karen points out that she can tell that Imani doesn't know about him smoking his weed. She tells him that she'd appreciate it if he smoked up on another street so her kids don't see. Then she asks him why he and Imani decided to move here of all places. Malik points out that they just wanted to live closer to the city, and Karen tells him that they're infiltrating the suburban neighborhoods. Then she asks what he does for a living, and he tells her that he runs a community center. She tells him that she's proud of what he does, and he asks her what she does for a living. She tells him that she's a stay-at-home mom, but her husband died not long ago. When she asks about Imani, Malik points out that she asks a lot of questions. He points out that she's a successful blogger, and Karen keeps rubbing things in. There are really people out there like this. This might be a movie, but there are real Karens out there. There's probably a Karen watching this right now. Malik heads inside and he tries to ask Imani about dinner. She tells him that she's been so busy, but Malik tells her that he'll just eat an apple. When he asks if she's met Karen, Imani can't believe that they've got a white neighbor named Karen. Malik tells her that his conversations with Karen have been anything but pleasant, but Imani just says that they'll keep an eye on her. Later, Malik and Imani head to their room to get it on, and Kyle's watching them from his bedroom window. Karen pops up to see what he's so interested in, and she sends Kyle downstairs immediately. Karen keeps watching, and she even gets a little hot and bothered. It's only when Sarah calls her that she shuts the window. Oh, creeper Karen! She's probably secretly into it. I feel like Karen's the type to have some XXX sites up on her phone with some crazy roleplay stuff going on. Later that night, Malik and Imani are in bed, and they hear a loud sound outside. Malik grabs his gun, and they go outside to look around. It turns out to be a dog in their trash, and they start to laugh about the situation. When they look around, they notice that Karen's camera is pointed right at their house. Karen's literally sitting in her living room, eating popcorn and watching them in their yard. This feels very illegal. Imani decides that she's going to handle the situation the next night. When the time comes, Amani goes over to Karen's house, and she introduces herself. Amani gives her a homemade pecan pie, and she points out the camera on the side of the house. Karen tells her that she'll take care of that, and she mentions that they should put up curtains since her son saw them getting it on. Karen then closes the door on Amani, and she goes to the kitchen to throw away the pie. Back at their house, Amani and Malik put up the curtains, and she mentions that Karen might have a thing for him. Malik assures her that he'd never look at another woman. In the morning, Malik is cleaning his car, and Kyle's outside playing basketball. Malik comes over to play a bit with Kyle, and they introduce themselves. They actually play a bit together, but Karen comes out shortly after. All of a sudden, Karen is friendly enough to ask Malik to do some things with her car. Then she starts rubbing down his arm? What's going on? When he spills antifreeze, Karen invites him into her house. This feels like a setup, at least with a Karen. When Malik goes to use the bathroom, he finds the room with the cameras that watch his house, but when he goes to the bathroom, he spots a lot of Confederate memorabilia and family history in there. He quickly rushes out, and Karen tries to tell him that he's welcome whenever he wants. Malik rushes home to Amani, and he tells her that he saw everything inside her house. Amani decides that they should do something about this, and she decides to set up her own security cameras. Later on at the HOA meeting, Karen decides to talk about Amani and Malik to the other board members. And Karen doesn't like being called a racist. Karen points out that letting a black couple into the neighborhood is a gateway to much worse circumstances. She tells the others that she wants to find them, but no one else sees it her way. She tried to say that black babies were a downside to having them in the neighborhood. Karen has absolutely no filter. She definitely needs to spend a little time outside of her cul-de-sac. What's even worse is how she tries to tell Amani that she loves how her people come up with the coolest names. My god, just evict her or something. When Karen talks with Amani, she finds out that they're having a housewarming party on Saturday, and she manages to weasel an invitation out of Amani. On Saturday, Karen comes over with a fruitcake, and she has no problem rocking the boat. It turns out that one of the guys that she got kicked out of the restaurant earlier is one of Malik's friends. When Karen sits down to mingle, she makes her point very known. But some of their other friends try to educate her on why they feel oppressed. When Karen says that they should go back to Africa, Amani and Malik tell her that it's time for her to go. After everyone goes home, Malik and Amani argue about how they handled the Karen situation, and the conversation grows into addressing all of their personal issues. After a heated discussion, Malik goes for a long walk while smoking, and he runs into Karen. She tries to apologize for her behavior, and Malik tells her that it's obvious she has a problem with black people. Yeah, you think? On top of that, she tries to butter his biscuit while still saying racist stuff. How has nothing bad happened to Karen before? We've already seen how she acts in public. It's amazing that anyone can stand to be around her. The next day, Karen comes home to find that Malik and Amani put their trash can at the road a day early, and she decides to knock it over and run into her house. When Amani comes out, she just assumes that it was stray dogs. But soon, Sarah comes out to talk to her. Amani introduces herself and they strike up a great conversation. Sarah offers to help, and as they talk, Sarah tells Amani that her third-grade boyfriend was actually black. Sarah tells Amani that Karen doesn't like black people, and she points out that she doesn't like Amani. Just then, Karen comes out to retrieve Sarah, and she threatens Amani. After that, Karen goes down the road to pick up some trash, and she decides to ask some guys to give her IDs to prove they live there. What does she do when they try to stand up for themselves? She calls Mike, and she tries to tell him that they were scaring her. Want to know what else, though? It turns out that Mike is just as racist as Karen is. He arrests all three of them. Even his partner tries to talk some sense into him. Amani drives by as the boys get arrested, and that evening at home, she tells Malik that she wants to sell the house. Meanwhile, Karen is standing outside watching them eat through the window. Malik tells Amani that they're not going to run, but Amani does not want to live like this. When Amani decides that she doesn't want to talk about it anymore, Malik gets a different sense of things. The next day, Mike and Karen meet up, and she tells him that she wants Amani and Malik to get out of her neighborhood. Mike tells her not to worry about things, and he assures her that everyone takes care of their own. Later, Karen heads to the HOA meeting, and they tell her that she's no longer the head of the HOA. This is rich. Apparently one of the kids she got arrested is actually the son of a civil rights attorney that lives in the neighborhood. This is fantastic. Can the HOA evict her? Karen's really gonna go off the rails now. Karen assures them that she's not going down without a fight, and she storms out of the building. That evening, Amani watches a news report about the attorney who's actually suing the police department and the HOA. Karen's also at her home watching the same thing, and when it's done, she rushes to the bathroom to lose her grip even more. Across town, Malik is meeting with his friend to talk about the situation, and Malik gets worried after hearing about some crazy neighbor stories. Outside, Karen's spying on Malik, and she tells someone on the phone that she's found him. Soon, Malik heads to his car and he starts to drive home. Just then, we see that Mike is waiting for him to pull away. and he tells his partner that he got a tip that Malik had drugs on his person. Wow. Karen's not gonna get any if she gets him arrested. This is also the worst timing for Karen or Mike to really be doing anything like this. They're literally targets in a civil rights case, and Malik's a neighbor who has witnesses of Karen's crazy butt. Mike literally plants a huge bag of weed in his car, and that's the end of that. When they get back to the precinct, Mike's partner tells him that he's going to tell the captain exactly what he did, but Mike threatens to finish him if he does. In the morning, Amani shows up to bail Malik out, and they head home. Amani decides to put a social calling online to make more people aware of their situation, but she's interrupted when her car alarm goes off. When she comes outside, she finds Karen on the car, and Karen tries to tell Amani that she wants to make amends. Karen tries to explain that her issues started when she was a child that got ran out of what used to be a nice neighborhood, and she tells Amani that she just wants her out of her neighborhood. When Amani tells Karen that she's not going anywhere, you knew that this was war. The soundtrack even changed afterwards. It's about to go down. The next day, Amani and Malik head into town to hire the civil case lawyer, Charles. Karen's in the parking lot spying on them though, and she calls Mike to warn him. When Charles finds out that they're about Karen, he tells them a little more about the background of Karen and Mike. When Charles finds out that Amani is the one that sent him the video of Karen before, he decides that he'll do everything he can. That night, a bang is heard at the door, and Malik goes to answer. It's actually Mike, and he has a search warrant. When they find the gun, they end up arresting Malik once again. Just leave them alone! This is one of those stories that you know happens, but you never hear about it. Charles calls to see about Malik being booked, but it turns out that he never was. Nope. To top it off, Karen shut off the power to Amani's house and breaks in with a gun. This is more of a horror movie. While Charles goes to the station to check on Malik, Amani cuts Karen with one of her swords before running up the stairs. Karen fires a shot off, but she misses. When Mike hears over the radio that shots were just fired at Malik's house, he rushes out of the station. Karen keeps searching around the house for Amani, but Amani's waiting for her. She hits her in the back of the head, and she wrestles her on the ground. Eventually, Karen gets a hold of her gun again, and Mike arrives. When Mike gets there, he tries to make a plan on how to handle Amani, and Karen shoots her. The shock of the situation doesn't stop there. Immediately after, Mike's partner comes in, and he tries to get Karen to drop her gun. He sees that Amani is still breathing. When he doesn't stop pointing his gun at Karen, Mike shoots him, but his partner shoots him in the head. Wait, there's still more. Karen points the gun at the partner, but then Amani takes Mike's gun and shoots Karen. It's just a big round robin here. After the events of the night, Charles, Amani, and Malik address the nation, and Charles announces that they're going through with this lawsuit. We see that Amani ends up becoming the president of the HOA, the community changes its name, and Amani ends up getting pregnant. Then, the credits roll. This Karen took the name to a whole new level. Karen and Mike are exactly what's wrong with the world. And while the name and stigma's a joke, the behaviors in this character weren't. Don't be a Karen. For all the Karens out there that are stuck with the Karen jokes but really aren't like that, I'm so sorry. The joke has to run its course at some point. As for the movie, give it a shot. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more like this one. Comment what you think I should watch next, and I'll see you in the next video.